Hello, my name is Tony Cooper. I am one of the partners at Market Force, and I want to take a few minutes to share what's been going on for me in light of the recent events in our country that have captured everybody's attention, um, rightfully so. So let me start off. I want to share that I am a white, straight Jewish male. I am 53 years old, so you could say that I'm an old white guy. My wife and I are in our 22nd year of marriage, and we have two children, a 17-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son, who we are attempting to raise to be better people than we are. And we live just outside of Sacramento, which is California's state capital. So, sharing thoughts about what's going on. I think the first thing I want to say is that I want to acknowledge that something feels different to me about all of this, our society, in a way that I really can't recall previously feeling like this in my life. Um, we are collectively looking directly at racism and injustice right in its eye. We've all seen these horrific images and heard far too many stories about all of this that have been burned into our consciousness in a way that clearly seems that we will not be able to put the genie back into the bottle, nor should we. This moment feels like the beginning of the possibility of change, but it is clearly only the beginning, and we have a lot of work to do. And that's one of the problems that I've been bumping up against this week, is what to do. There's a lot of desire and for change, and a lot of willingness to do things, but not much clarity on what to do. And it's more like it's like education is the thing about the moment. So for me, not knowing what to do, if I'm in a place that I don't know what to do, that's not a good thing for me. It can make me feel frozen. I can feel paralyzed, stuck, agitated. But this week, instead of feeling those feelings, I reached out to people that I care about. I've talked to a lot of clients and decided just to be in a dialogue with a wide range of people. I haven't been looking necessarily for the answer of what to do, but I've noticed that just being in regular dialogue is moving me closer to know what to do. And I just want to share some insights of what's been going on. I've been in a lot of conversations, and I've been doing a lot more than usual of simply asking and listening, and listening truly with like through empathy, with an intent to learn, to wrestle with the gap between what I understand and these realities that I haven't experienced. So for me, empathy is often a little more logical than emotional, meaning my normal process is to try to make sense of things that I don't understand, like logically make sense of them, as opposed to simply feeling the feelings of what it might be like to be another person. But this week has been different because it's been really emotional, and I've really been overcome with a lot of emotional empathy, and there have been a lot of tears and a lot of anger and frustration and feelings of disgrace and shame, and a lot of other feelings that I don't have names for. So I want to share a few things that have come up for me as a result of this dialogue. So first thing I want to say is I'm really truly grateful that a number of people close to me who are Black have shared themselves openly in a way that I haven't experienced before. From my Black brothers and sisters, I've learned about not just the struggles and the injustice and the persecution and the fear that they face every day being Americans, but also, starting to get a feeling of the toll that cumulative impact has had on them in their lives. The countless experience they've had to go through, the indiscretions, the discrimination, aggressions they've endured, having to watch people who look like them be vilified and murdered on television, see posted horrible things posted online, or um, just dealt with in their communities on a regular basis. Mothers shared the fear they have every time their teenager adult sons leave the house, worried sick about their safety and whether or not they'll return. People share with me everything from rage, hopelessness, to feeling devalued, absolutely exhausted by it all. And I've had the opportunity to feel those feelings with them. I've definitely gotten a new appreciation for the words systemic and institutionalized as they're used to describe racism in our country. I used to believe that there are racist and non-racist people, but I now realize how naive that sounds. It seems obvious to me now that we truly live in a system that has racism kind of at its core. It's like if you look historically at about our country and how it was created and what our founding fathers put forth, it has racism like as the foundation under the building, with threads throughout all our society, and most of which I'll admit was pretty blind to. I've also had discussions with white people this week that have been kind of astounding for me. From my white brothers and sisters this week, I've learned that white people, for the first time in my life, are really truly beginning to be willing to own our piece of this, to talk about things that are pretty uncomfortable, to put ourselves out there on the bleeding edge of a series of very scary acknowledgments, conversations. And we've been talking about white privilege, which is something that wasn't happening before. So 3 things I've gotten clear about about white privilege this week. The first one is white people do not like that phrase. They can get very easily offended by it, and they take it like they're being accused of doing something wrong, like they're intentionally taking advantage of something. The truth is, most white people can't even see their privilege, so I get the disconnect there. But it's also pretty obvious to people who aren't white, and that's the thing for us to overcome. So, what is privilege? So, 2 things about it that I've definitely started to understand in a different way. So, without a doubt, we live in a society that makes it easier for people who look like me to succeed and prosper and even just get around in the world. Now, that doesn't mean that life is easy or that success comes without struggle. All of that's true. But it's simply an acknowledgement the system is rigged in our favor. It works for us, and the part of our population, the part of the population of our country that are people of color, specifically Black people, don't share that advantage. They find themselves persistently disadvantaged, harassed, made to feel badly about themselves, like they don't matter. They get that reflected them all the time. They have to work much harder to overcome more challenges with fewer advantages because of that system. That's the privilege. And it would be hard for white people to see it until we start looking at it. That's what's starting to happen now. And the other part of white privilege is that white people have the ability to be in this conversation, to focus on it whenever they want. But we also have the privilege of the ability to not pay attention to it whenever we don't want to. And that's a privilege that Black people don't have. So this is all very complex. One of the things I like to do is to make sense of the world. And the world's pretty complicated, and you have to simplify it. So here's the simplification I've been playing with this week. And I hope this doesn't hit anybody the wrong way. But I'm sure a lot of what I'm going to say, because of my perspective, might. So I thought about it like this. So if you were going to make cookies, you'd have to mix together sugar and flour and butter. You'd make some other ingredients, you'd make a batter, and you start baking cookies. And let's say you didn't like how the cookies turned out. So maybe there's just too much sugar in the cookies. So here's the question: how would you go about removing the sugar from the batter? I mean, it would be impossible. It seems like an impossible task. And yet, racism is the sugar. Um, and the batter is our society. And it's integrated into our lives. And it seems like extracting it would be impossible, but that is what we must figure out how to do. So, sorry, this is kind of going on a little longer than I expected, but from the work we do at Market Force, I've gotten clearer and clearer that from a biological perspective, people always will act in their own self-interest. All people think and act in ways that support their own preservation. That's biology. So it can only assume that racism was born from that place. It somehow was part of the preservation of a biological system. And as long as people continue to put their own self-preservation, meaning not being out there and taking a stand against racism or to confronting it when it's rising, when we put our own self-preservation ahead of fighting racism, racism will persist, racism will win, and will remain an ingredient in the system. I have no idea, of course, what the solution is. Why would I? And it's clearly not going to be easy or simple to change, but I know that humans, I believe and I know that humans have limitless potential. And when we put our minds and our hearts to the task, when we practice empathy, genuine empathy, and put our collective needs above our individual ones, we will find that humans can be incredibly resourceful and innovative and adaptable, and impossible things can become possible. Conversations are a good start. That's what we're doing here. We're doing a Market Force. We're doing, hopefully everybody out there is having conversations about this. We have to create a society, though, where being anti-racist is in our own best interest. I know that our children are our future, and I'm doing my best to raise them in a way that to be anti-racist, to, like I said before, to be better than I am. I know we put our hope in them that generationally they can bring forth great change, but we also have to be able to begin making more progress today. So if you watched, thank you. I hope maybe it gave you an opportunity to think about this differently. I would like to learn from you. I would love to hear your thoughts about what we can do to work collectively to begin making the world a better place today. And blessings to you and healing to our world.